One of the really wonderful things about using this theory is that it's not just useful for one population. I've mentioned, it can be used with children with a broad range of issues, but it can also be very, useful in working with adults. It's a particularly useful theory, especially using systematic desensitization when you're working with adults or children who are suffering from, anxiety disorders, stress disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, for example, obsessive compulsive disorder, different phobias, depression. It's been useful in couples who have come in for, with marital problems. It can also be useful for people who suffer from schizophrenia, and it can be useful in helping correct some of the behaviors there. And Walsh, really in his text really points out a lot of different uses for this particular theory. There was one really interesting study by Schemes and others about an individual who had, like a fear of eating, a choking phobia. Essentially what had happened was this young man had been in a car accident and had some, damage to his, esophagus and tracheal tube, such that after the accident he wasn't able to eat properly without choking. So he was eventually classically conditioned to just be afraid of eating. It became very, very, debilitating. It changed his lifestyle. He was afraid to go out socially because, if he went out with his friends, they would usually want to eat or drink, and he was afraid and he was unable to eat. He was, barely getting by. And they found that, in using behavior therapy, they were able to actually work through that, and the young man was able to eventually be able to eat somewhat normally and, ease the social anxiety that he felt when going out and, being around food and people drinking. There was another really interesting study done on people with needle phobias, and this was done by Williamson, Chowdhury, and Briscoe. Basically, they did a study of people who just had severe needle phobias, and they pointed out that obviously, anytime you're going to get a needle or an injection, it's typically not a pleasant experience for most people. It kind of hurts. But these people had either had some kind of traumatic event happen to them, or just had been, classically conditioned to just truly, truly be afraid of needles, to the point of, panic attacks and things like that. And they found that using systematic desensitization with these people was a very, very effective way in overcoming that particular phobia. There was also, studies done on the usefulness in behavioral theory and marketing, which I thought was really interesting. Maybe I should just